The day I realized my wife had become a stranger wasn't the day I caught her. It was 3 months earlier, when she looked at me over breakfast, and I saw absolutely nothing in her eyes. My name is James, 32 years old, working as a real estate market analyst in Chandler, Arizona. The spring heat was already building, turning our small city into a preview of the summer inferno to come. Our apartment's air conditioning rattled like it had something to say, but couldn't quite get the words out. A mechanical wheeze that had become the soundtrack to our mornings. Brenda, my wife of 6 years, taught yoga at a studio downtown. She had this way of moving through spaces like water, fluid and purposeful, never wasting energy on unnecessary motion. We'd met at a mutual friend's barbecue 7 years ago, one of those perfect Arizona evenings when the temperature finally dropped below 90, and you could actually breathe outside. I'd been standing by the grill, trying to look useful while having no idea what I was doing with the tongs, when she'd walked over with that calm smile and said, "You're about to cremate those burgers." I'd laughed, handed her the tongs, and spent the rest of the evening learning about chakras and energy flow, while secretly just watching the way the sunset caught in her hair. For 6 years, we'd built something I thought was solid. No kids yet, we'd talked about it endlessly, those late-night conversations where you plan out a future that feels both inevitable and impossibly distant. She wanted to establish her yoga practice more firmly first, build up a consistent client base, maybe even open her own studio someday. I was focused on climbing the ladder at my firm, proving myself as more than just another analyst running numbers. We told ourselves we had time. Plenty of time. Our apartment in Chandler was modest but comfortable, a 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a complex that tried very hard to be upscale without quite getting there. We'd painted the walls ourselves when we first moved in, arguing good-naturedly about whether desert sage was actually different from regular beige. It was but barely. Brenda had filled every available surface with plants, succulents on the windowsills, a massive fiddle leaf fig in the corner that she talked to like a pet, hanging pothoes that created a small jungle effect in our living room. She insisted they helped with energy flow and air quality. I didn't mind. Watching her tend to them, carefully wiping dust off leaves and adjusting them towards sunlight, was one of those small intimacies that made a house feel like a home. The routine was simple, predictable in the best way. I'd wake up at 6, my internal alarm clock more reliable than any phone, and brew coffee strong enough to wake the dead, dark roast, nearly burned, the way my dad had taught me. While the coffee maker gurgled and hissed, I'd open my laptop at the kitchen table and start reviewing overnight market reports, checking how housing starts looked, what the interest rates were doing, scanning for patterns in the chaos of numbers and projections. Brenda would emerge around 6:30, already in her yoga clothes, moving quietly so as not to disturb my concentration. She'd unroll her mat in the living room, right next to the fiddle leaf fig, and flow through sun salutations while I pretended not to watch. There was something meditative about it, her movements, my numbers, the coffee smell filling the apartment, the soft light of early morning before the Arizona sun turned aggressive. She'd teach classes from 9 until 3 most days, sometimes 4 on Thursdays when she had the advanced group. The studio was downtown, about a 30-minute drive depending on traffic, located in one of those converted warehouse spaces that attracted the young professional crowd. I'd work from home twice a week, appreciating the quiet and the lack of office politics. The other days I'd head to the firm's office in Phoenix, enduring the commute but enjoying the energy of the trading floor, the constant buzz of deal-making and analysis. Evenings were ours, cooking together in our small kitchen, bumping into each other and laughing about it, trying new recipes that sometimes worked and sometimes resulted in ordering pizza. We'd watch shows, curled up on our thrift store couch that was more comfortable than it had any right to be. Occasionally we'd go out with friends like Leon and his wife Cecilia, meeting at restaurants in Phoenix or Scottsdale, splitting appetizers and complaining about Arizona drivers, and comparing notes on marriage like it was a team sport we were all figuring out together. It was comfortable. Maybe too comfortable. Maybe that was the problem. We'd settled into grooves so deep they'd become ruts, and I'd been too content analyzing market trends to notice the trends in my own life. The first crack appeared in February, though I didn't recognize it then. I was reviewing a particularly complex commercial property analysis when Brenda had flopped down on the couch next to me, phone in hand, that concentrated look she got when she was researching something important. "I'm thinking I need to update my professional photos," she'd said, scrolling through Instagram with her thumb moving in that rapid-fire way people do when they're deep into a rabbit hole. The ones on the studio's website are 3 years old. I look like a completely different person. You look the same to me, I'd said, which was true and also the exact wrong thing to say, apparently, based on the look she gave me. That's not the point, James. It's about professional presentation. I found this photographer, Jack something. His Instagram is incredible. He specializes in fitness and wellness photography. Look at this. She'd shoved her phone in my face, and I dutifully looked at a grid of images. Women in yoga poses on mountain tops, CrossFit athletes mid-lift, runners frozen in perfect stride. They were good photos, I could admit that much, even if I couldn't articulate why they were better than any other fitness photos I'd seen. His work is amazing, Brenda continued, her voice carrying that enthusiastic edge she got when she was excited about something. He really captures movement, you know? The energy of it, not just static poses. Sounds good, I'd said, already turning back to my laptop where a spreadsheet full of capitalization rates was waiting. You should book him. I already did. Saturday at 10. That photoshoot happened on a Saturday in late February. The morning had started normally. I'd made my terrible coffee. She'd done her sun salutations. We'd eaten breakfast together while I read market reports, and she scrolled through poses she wanted to try for the shoot. She'd been nervous, I remember that now. Kept asking if her outfit looked okay. Black leggings and a teal sports bra that she'd bought specifically for this. You look great, I'd assured her, barely glancing up. God, I'd barely glanced up. She left at 10 in the morning, said it would take a few hours. He wants to do some outdoor shots at Papago Park, then some studio work, she'd explained, checking her bag for the third time to make sure she had everything. I'll probably be back by 2 or 3. I'd spent the day working on a presentation for Monday, grateful for the quiet apartment and uninterrupted time. 2 o'clock came and went. Then 3. At 4 I texted her. How's it going? Great. Taking longer than expected. Jack is super thorough. Probably another few hours. Another few hours. I'd ordered Thai food for myself, eaten it while watching a documentary about the 2008 housing crisis, fallen asleep on the couch sometime around 6. I woke up when the door opened at 7:15. Brenda had walked in glowing. There's no other word for it. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright, her whole body radiating this energy that I hadn't seen in months. Maybe years. It went so well, she'd said, dropping her bag and practically bouncing into the kitchen for water. James, you should see some of the shots he got. I felt like art, you know? He made me feel like every movement mattered, like I was creating something beautiful just by existing. I should have paid attention to that word. Art. I should have noticed the flush in her cheeks, the way she couldn't stop smiling, the fact that a professional photo shoot had taken 9 hours when she'd said 3. I should have asked questions. What had they been doing for 9 hours? Where exactly had they gone? Why did she seem more alive at 7 p.m. than she had at 10 a.m.? But I didn't. I just smiled and said I was glad it went well, and asked if she wanted some of the leftover pad thai. That was my first mistake. Not my last, but definitely my first. March rolled in with warmer temperatures and subtle changes. Brenda started staying later at the studio. New evening classes, she explained. Trying to build the schedule. Made sense. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? 6 years of marriage had given me no reason not to. But then came the small things. Her phone, which used to sit on the kitchen counter charging, now lived in her purse. She'd take it to the bathroom, to the bedroom when she changed. When I'd ask about her day, her answers became vague. Fine. Busy. You know how it is. I knew how it was. I just didn't know how it really was. The real unraveling started in April. Brenda had always been affectionate. Random hugs from behind while I worked, holding hands during movies. That stopped. She'd come home from the studio and go straight to shower, sometimes for 45 minutes. Who needs 45 minutes? One evening, I suggested we visit my brother Ruben in Phoenix for the weekend. He'd just bought a house and wanted to show it off. I can't, Brenda said immediately. I have. I'm doing another photo shoot with Jack. Follow-up stuff for the studio. On a weekend? He's busy during the week. It's the only time that works. The way she said it, defensive before I'd even questioned her, made something cold settle in my stomach. I'm a market analyst. My job is finding patterns in chaos, seeing trends before they become obvious. So I started looking at the data of my own life. Her schedule said she taught until 3 most days, sometimes 4. But she wasn't coming home until 6, 7, sometimes 8. Traffic, she'd say, or grabbed coffee with students. Chandler to downtown Phoenix wasn't that far. Even with traffic, it didn't add up. So I did what I do best. I analyzed. I started with the easy stuff. Our cell phone bill showed hours of calls to a number I didn't recognize. When I reverse searched it, nothing came up. Probably a mobile number not listed publicly. But the pattern was clear. Multiple calls per day, some lasting an hour or more, always during times when Brenda said she was teaching or running errands. Next, I checked our shared cloud storage. Brenda wasn't tech-savvy enough to know that photos automatically backed up. What I found made my hands shake. Pictures of her, professional ones from that first photo shoot with Jack. But there were others, ones that clearly weren't for any yoga studio website. Her in poses that were more intimate than instructional. And in some, reflected in mirrors or glass, I could see him. Jack, tall, tattooed, holding the camera like it was an extension of his body. The timestamps on the photos told their own story. They'd been taken over multiple sessions, multiple days. This wasn't a one-time photo shoot. This was ongoing. I could have confronted her then. Part of me wanted to. But another part, the analytical part, wanted the full picture. Because if I was going to burn my marriage down, I needed to know exactly how much gasoline I was using. I installed a recovery program on our home computer that she sometimes used. It tracked deleted browser history, cached files, everything. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Messages. Hundreds of them. She'd been using a messaging app I'd never heard of, probably thinking it was secure. It wasn't. Not when you're married to someone who understands systems. The messages between Brenda and Jack started professional. Thanks for the great session. Can't wait to see the photos. But by late February they'd shifted. I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again? This is crazy, but I've never felt like this. I sat in my home office, the blue light from the monitor making everything feel surreal, and read through months of their affair. Jack wasn't just a photographer. He was a lifestyle, apparently. 35, divorced, living in a loft in downtown Phoenix. Exactly the kind of artistic free spirit that probably seemed exotic compared to a guy who spent his days analyzing housing market trends. But it got worse, because Jack wasn't the only one. As I dug deeper into the recovered data, I found other conversations, other names. There was someone named Tyler, messages from March about meeting at the usual place with laughing emojis and inside jokes I wasn't part of. There was David, whose messages were brief but frequent. Same time tomorrow? I'll bring the wine. There was someone she called Jim Guy, whose real name appeared to be Marcus, and their messages were almost purely logistical. Times, places, durations. And then there was someone named Alex whose messages were recent, from just 2 weeks ago, containing level of detail that made me physically ill. 5. There were 5 of them. Jack was just the main one, the one she'd apparently developed actual feelings for. The others seemed more recreational. The common thread? A place called Desert Heat Sauna in Scottsdale. It appeared in multiple message threads. Coordinates were sometimes shared. Time slots. It was like she'd been running a schedule. A sauna. My wife was meeting multiple men at a sauna in Scottsdale. Scottsdale was about 30 minutes from Chandler, 45 with traffic. All those late evenings, all those extended classes, she'd been driving to Scottsdale. I sat with this information for 3 days. 3 days of eating breakfast with her, watching her smile at her phone, listening to her talk about expanding her practice, and finding herself through yoga philosophy. 3 days of sleeping next to someone who'd become a complete stranger. The thing about betrayal isn't the single moment of discovery. It's the retroactive poisoning of every memory. That weekend she went to that yoga retreat in Sedona last month. Probably a lie. The girls' trip to California in January? Who knows? Every late night, every shower immediately upon coming home, every time she'd seemed distant and I'd assumed she was just tired, all of it was recontextualized into a different story. On the 4th day, I made my decision. But I wasn't going to just confront her. That would give her the power to spin it, to minimize it, to make me feel crazy for being upset. No, I was going to be methodical. I took a day off work, told Brenda I had a site visit in Tucson. Instead, I drove to Scottsdale. Found Desert Heat Sauna, a upscale wellness place with private rooms, couples packages, the works. I sat in my car across the street and waited. At 2:30, Brenda's car pulled into the parking lot. My stomach dropped even though I knew this was coming. 15 minutes later, a black truck arrived. A man got out, Jack, I assumed, matching the photos I'd seen reflected in mirrors. They met at the entrance, and even from a distance, I could see the familiarity between them. The way he touched her lower back, the way she leaned into him. They went inside together. I sat there for 2 hours, imagining everything happening behind those walls. When they finally emerged, Brenda looked relaxed, happy. Happier than I'd seen her in months. They kissed in the parking lot, not a quick peck, but a real kiss, the kind that tells you everything you need to know. I drove home and waited. She arrived at 6:30. "Sorry I'm late," she called out, heading straight for the shower as usual. Had a new student who wanted to talk about their practice after class. I was sitting on the couch, my laptop open. How was Scottsdale? The silence from the bathroom was absolute. Then the shower turned off. She appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a towel, face pale. "What?" "Scottsdale. Desert heat sauna." "How was it?" "James, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I have months of messages here. I have photos. I have deleted browser history. I have timestamps and locations, and an entire archive of lies." I turned the laptop so she could see the screen. "So please explain. Explain Jack. Explain Tyler, David, Marcus, and Alex. Explain all of it." She stood there, water dripping from her hair onto the hardwood floor we'd picked out together 3 years ago. I watched her cycle through emotions, shock, fear, anger, calculation. She was trying to figure out which approach would work. The tears? The defensiveness? The blame shifting? She went with anger. "You spied on me? You violated my privacy?" "Your privacy?" I stood up, and I was surprised by how calm I felt. "Brenda, you've been sleeping with 5 different men. 5. While coming home and kissing me goodnight. While making plans for our future. While I was thinking we just needed to reconnect, you were actively maintaining relationships with 5 other people." "It's not like that." "Then what's it like? Enlighten me." She sat down on the edge of our bed, towel clutched around her. "You don't understand what it's like to be invisible. To be just there. You work, you come home, you read your reports. We haven't really connected in years, James. I needed to feel alive again. So you chose this? You chose to lie every single day instead of talking to me. I tried talking to you. You were always busy, always analyzing some market trend, always distracted. When did you try, Brenda?" "When?" "Because I have records of every conversation we've had in the past year, and not once did you say you were unhappy. Not once did you say you wanted to work on things. You just started fucking other people and figured you'd keep me around for. What? Stability? The apartment? Someone to split bills with." "It wasn't supposed to mean anything," she said quietly. "It just happened." "Which time? Which of the 5 times did it just happen?" "When you met Jack for that photo shoot and decided to turn it into an affair. When you started messaging Tyler. When you added David to the rotation. Which one just happened, Brenda?" She had no answer for that. "I want you out," I said. "I'm filing for divorce. You have until the end of the week to find somewhere else to stay. This is my home too." "No. This was our home. You made it something else. You turned it into a base of operations for your whatever this is. So you can leave, or I can leave, but we're not doing this anymore. You're so desperate to be loved, it's pathetic," she said suddenly, standing up. The towel dropped slightly, and she didn't even bother to fix it. Her eyes were hard. "You think you're some victim here? You checked out of this marriage 2 years ago. I just had the courage to actually do something about it." I just smiled and walked away from her. The next few weeks were a blur of legal paperwork and division of assets. Arizona is a community property state, which meant everything got split down the middle. The apartment was a rental, so that was easy. We'd both move out, neither of us keeping it. Our cars were separate. Bank accounts were divided. It was all remarkably straightforward when there weren't kids involved. But I wasn't done, because I'd learned something else during my deep dive into Brenda's digital life. Jack, the photographer, the main affair partner, had a girlfriend. Serious one too, based on the social media digging I'd done. Her name was Sarah, and she had no idea Jack was spending his afternoons in saunas with married yoga instructors. I made sure she found out. Anonymous email, screenshots of messages, timestamps. Not out of spite. Okay, maybe a little out of spite, but mostly because she deserved to know what kind of person she was dating. 2 days after Sarah received that information, Jack's social media went dark. Brenda started calling me frantically. "What did you do? What did you tell Sarah?" I told her the truth. Seems only fair, doesn't it? You got to have your fun, and she got to know who she was in a relationship with. "You ruined everything." "No, Brenda. You did that yourself." I just made sure the consequences found their way to the right people. Turns out Sarah was not the forgiving type. Not only did she break up with Jack, but she also posted about his infidelity publicly, which for a photographer trying to build a business in the tight-knit Phoenix wellness community was essentially professional suicide. Yoga studios and wellness centers didn't want to work with someone known for sleeping with his clients. Jack blamed Brenda, according to the messages I saw before she finally figured out how to actually secure her accounts. He called her reckless, said she'd ruined his life, that she was never worth the risk. All that romance, all those feelings she thought made it special, evaporated when real consequences appeared. The others scattered too. Once Brenda was exposed, she lost her value as an exciting secret. Tyler stopped responding to her messages. David blocked her. Marcus, gym guy, apparently told her to lose his number. Alex just ghosted entirely. And the yoga studio? Well, they didn't fire her. Technically, she hadn't done anything that violated her contract. But Cecilia, Leon's wife, who'd been one of her students and also happened to know several people on the studio's board, made sure everyone knew why James and Brenda were divorcing. The whisper network in the yoga community is stronger than any formal system. Brenda's evening classes started getting canceled due to low enrollment. By the time our divorce was finalized in late June, Brenda had moved in with a friend temporarily, lost her main teaching position, and was single. Completely single. The 5 men who'd been so exciting when they were secrets wanted nothing to do with her once she was available and came with baggage. I saw her one last time, at the courthouse for the final divorce hearing. She looked tired, but I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I might. Just nothing. She'd become a stranger months ago. This was just making it official. "I hope you're happy," she said as we left the courtroom. "I'm not," I answered honestly. "But I'm free. That's better." I moved to a smaller apartment closer to my office in Phoenix. Started going to therapy, because apparently processing your wife's 5 concurrent affairs is something you can't just logic your way through. Leon and Cecilia had me over for dinner regularly, which helped. The thing about betrayal is that it teaches you something valuable. You can survive it. The person you trusted most in the world can implode your life, and you'll still wake up the next morning. Still go to work. Still function. Brenda tried to reach out a few times in the following months, texts saying she was sorry, that she'd made mistakes, that she wanted to explain properly. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to explain. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. I heard through Cecilia that Brenda eventually moved to Tempe, started teaching private yoga sessions. Jack apparently left Arizona entirely, relocated to Colorado to try rebuilding his reputation. The others, who knows, who cares? As for me, I learned to trust my analysis skills again, to pay attention to patterns before they become disasters. I learned that stability isn't the same as connection, and comfort isn't the same as happiness. I learned that some people will burn down everything good in their lives because they're chasing a feeling, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. But most importantly, I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not with anger, not with dramatic confrontations, but with clear eyes and a firm decision. My marriage ended not with a bang, but with signatures on legal documents and the quiet knowledge that I deserved better than someone who could look me in the eye every day while living 5 separate lies. The spring turned to summer, and life went on. Different, smaller, lonelier at times, but mine again. Fully mine. And that was worth more than all the comfortable lies we'd been living. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.